Episode 11 for Rob's Career Gems. How do you own your career? It's often repeated that we should own our career. But what does that look like? What does that look like if you're in a corporate job, senior technical professional, or mid-level director? There's all kinds of situations that we might find ourselves in our professional life. Some of us may be entrepreneurs. Some might be working for government or nonprofit or higher ed. So there are some principles and some best practices that I've learned over the course of my lifetime that I'd like to share with you to help you take charge of your career. And you will feel more empowered doing this. And also, most importantly, opportunities will become visible to you because you will actively search them out and you will discover some things that may lead to some meaningful and fulfilling work. So, the first thing I would say in owning your career, what does it mean to take charge of it? It's knowing yourself. What are your strengths, aptitudes, motivations? Where are your vulnerabilities? And where's your vibe? For lack of a better term, I would call that, your preferred work environment. Now, in my case, I'm better in a brain trust than being a solopreneur. So my best times, I think, thinking and collaborating and doing my best work are in the presence of other great thinkers and collaborators. And I think that's just something that trickled in and distilled upon me as I went through my career. Some of us are really good in our bat cave, thinking through difficult problems. Maybe that's when you do your best work. So we all have different preferred work environments and situations that we need to probably know about ourselves to optimize our performance. Simon Sinek, I think, said it best, though. It's knowing your why. And I think I owe it to you to declare my why. The reason why I do what I do in these career gems and in the work I do at Career Climb Consulting is to save people time. It took me more than half of my career to figure out what my stride was really like and how I could do my best work. Experimented with tech, started out my career in high tech, and then navigated into human resources, eventually found my way into consulting and teaching and coaching. But it took a long time for me to discover that that's where I do my best work. And so my whole goal, my whole why is to help others shortcut that learning curve. Save yourself time so you have more runway in your career to bless the lives of others and to have maximum impact. I've only got a few years left in my career journey, so I hope that those of you who are listening to this might be able to take that shortcut or get that time rebate so you can fast forward to the best work of your life. That's my why. I think the second thing is understanding the context. We know that AI is profoundly impacting the job market. I think that's something we have to keep track of and be mindful of. I think the other thing is we have to know, really how the job market conditions are playing out. Certain jobs are always in demand. For example, healthcare jobs, still very high demand job. And there are other things that maybe have fallen off or not as in demand as they used to be. And there's other jobs that haven't even been developed yet or haven't even been invented yet, but they're going to be important. So getting ahead of that curve and understanding where, the market is evolving is important if we're going to take charge of our career. Also, what are our options? I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make in their career, particularly those who are in organizations, is thinking that growth equates to a promotion or more money. I found that is not true. Some of the most meaningful career moves I've made have been lateral moves that have led to promotions and more money and other opportunities. But sometimes it's having the courage to take a lateral move or even a step down if you're learning a new discipline or transferring into an adjacent function, knowing that your transferable skill set and your business context will widen with those development experiences. We have to be very intentional about when we might choose to do that and the advantages it could bring us. I think the other thing is adaptability and learning agility. We can't predict what the job market's going to be like 5 years from now. We can see some indicators and some trends, but we have to be continuously learning and tuned in and willing to flex. I think that is the number one thing that will make us successful is the adaptability and our ability to navigate, an emergent career situation. Careers are part planned and part emergent, and we have to be comfortable in that emergent space. I think the fifth thing is, we have to have a bias for exploration. I had a friend once who was a trumpet player, did major performances, in New York and, you know, big stage stuff. And he was thinking about his career and he was second trumpet. And he said, well, if I stay with this profession in music and performances, there's only one more seat that I could really aspire to, and that's being first trumpet, which means you're a pretty good trumpet player if you can make that. Even the second, trumpet is pretty good. But he saw more potential in himself than that. And so he took a bold and risky move. He actually bought a one-way ticket to Thailand. And he basically went to that country not knowing a single person, not even knowing the language, but knowing that there was a market for English teachers and that he could go there to teach English, which he did. So he found himself immersed in that culture, learned how to speak Thai and learned how to do, the customs and adapt to life in a completely different setting. And yes, he picked up some transferable skills. That's communication, project management, the discipline of teaching. And he did that. I can't remember. I think it was 2 to 3 years he was over there teaching English. And that move, that very bold, risky move, gave him clarity. And when he came back to the United States, some 2 or 3 years later, he knew he needed to be teaching and educating because he found a passion for that. And so he lined up some training for himself. He got his Series 7 and got licensed as a financial planner. And he's found a very successful career in financial planning. Allows him to have the lifestyle he wants, gives him that flexibility. He could still play the trumpet and do his music and performances, for fun from time to time, but he has a greater perspective and a greater understanding of the world because of that bias toward exploration and his willingness to make that move. We do have to get out of our comfort zones if we're going to develop and grow in our careers. That's the uncomfortable truth. And owning our career means we have to be willing to know what that is and where those best opportunities might present. So let's talk about, what you do if you're in a corporate job. Maybe you have a manager who's not really engaged very much in your career and where you're going, beyond the current job that you do. And many people are very intimidated to discuss things with their manager. Number one, because maybe their relationship's a little strained, or maybe it's not the best of relationships. But number two, it might be reluctance on the part of the manager to think that if you're going to talk about a career, you're going to come in there demanding more money or demanding a promotion. So I think that's where I go back to, what does growth look like? It may indeed be a promotion if you deserve one, or if you can make the case that, you are now qualified to do a job that is beyond what your current job is. But I think it's more of an exploratory conversation to share where your passions are and your strengths are and how you can connect those to the bigger problems that are going on in the organization and how you can make more impact and make more of a difference. Now, much of the time, those are the jobs that nobody wants to do. Managing big change projects, handling customer services complaints or mostly broken systems. So if you're willing to do the job that needs to be done versus just your job, then I think the future is bright for you in your career. So that advice and counsel comes courtesy of Liz Wiseman, one of my mentors. She wrote the book Impact Players, and significant difference between high impact professionals and solid performing professionals. The high impact people are willing to do the job that is needed, not just their job description. So I think if you're an entrepreneur or if you're in higher ed or something non-corporate, then it might be finding where your messaging and your values and your belief system connect with the prevailing needs and aspirations of the people you serve. In some cases, it's more purpose driven than driven by a title. You can learn about the bigger problems. You can be educated in the adjacent spaces in your organization and start to build relationships and coalitions to solve some of those larger problems. It's a little more difficult and less structured when you're in an environment like that, especially in entrepreneurship, because you have to follow the passion, you have to follow the opportunity and strike while the iron's hot. In some cases, it's saying yes before you even know how to do what is being asked of you, but having an implicit confidence and trust that you'll be able to figure it out. And the best entrepreneurs know that about themselves. They just know they have that intrinsic faith that they're going to figure it out as they go along. It's not like they're making things up as they go. It's that they know they can get on a learning curve, a learning trajectory that will lead them to a solution. So I think those are probably the biggest things that are on my mind about owning your career. And I hope some of those are helpful for context. Now let's talk about, how you engage your manager. I think the worst thing you could do is to go in and say, I'm ready for a promotion or more money. I think what might be interesting is in your next one-on-one to say, can I talk for a minute about the work and the problems that we're dealing with on our team? Because I think there's areas that I might be able to make a difference. So if you can make a case for your ability to be put on a key high visibility project or to maybe be willing to do a job that nobody else wants to do and do it with distinction and make an impact in that very difficult work, you're going to score some points and you're going to earn the trust of your manager. So it's really seeking out the alignment between the business needs and work that you love, that you do very well, and where you know you will have an impact, a positive impact. I think that's the secret formula for success. So if you just went to your manager and talked about the bigger problems that are on their plate and having that upward empathy to understand how they're wrestling with that problem and to offer something that you can contribute of value, that's going to be the start of a more vested partnership between you and your manager. Now, your manager is not going to own your career, but your manager can open doors and introduce you to people and get you exposure that will lead to greater opportunity in whatever organization you are now in. So just know that the manager does not have to be your best friend. You don't always have to see eye to eye, but if you can align around a problem that needs to be solved in a way that you can make a difference, that's the first step. And the other thing you can do, and this is your leverage point, is you can ask for maybe an opportunity to go and get certified in something. Like PMP is a good example, project management professional, industry certification. It's asked for in a lot of job descriptions. If your company's willing to sponsor you and pay for that certification, you take that with you no matter what jobs you go into after that. It's part of your credential, part of your transferable skill that is marketable. And so I think these are the kinds of things that really make a difference in engaging managers to have a vested interest in our careers. The other really powerful thing you could do is you can ask for the feedback. What have you seen when I have done my best work? Where do you see me at my best? And the most difficult question to ask is, what do I lack? Like, what am I not bringing, or what are you not seeing that is holding me back? That's a courageous question. And if you ask that question and you're willing to hear the advice and counsel and the answer that your manager will give you, that will probably win you a lot of respect and a lot of trust. So again, there's different ways to do this, but I would recommend you don't attack it from the money or the title perspective. I'd recommend you get fascinated in the problems that are on your manager's plate, where you know you can have an impact, and to ask for that opportunity and to make your case. Three things you can do right now. Let's talk about, like, you can walk out of this episode and say, what can I do right now to own my career or to revitalize it a little bit? By far, the best thing you can do is you can start informational interviewing. No matter how secure and satisfied you are in your current job, it's always a best practice to seek out someone in your network that maybe you don't know very well, or maybe not at all, that you might have to, have a second degree connection to be introduced to, but someone who's in a fascinating job, a job that maybe intrigues you or you know very little about it, and you want to have a conversation with that person. What's your day in the life like, and how did you get into this position? And how has your career path prepared you to do the work that you're doing? As long as you bring your intellectual curiosity and you are fascinated by the work, the person, the industry, or the space that they're in, you can have a very successful informational interview. And my goal in those informational interviews, and usually they're 15 or 20 minutes, is to always find something of value. Maybe there's a connection you have that would be beneficial to that person. Maybe they know some openings, some jobs that you are interested in that could turn into bona fide job opportunities. I never go into an informational interview like asking for a job, although you might want to seek those opportunities. It's more having the conversation that leads you to a productive space where there may be job opportunities, or where you might get introduced and have the opportunity to build relationships with key people in the space that you are angling for. So informational interviewing, you don't want to monopolize anybody's time. And I always try to set the first one, 15 to 20 minutes. Most people will say yes to that. You respect their time. Many of my informational interviews have gone over far longer, but that's by mutual agreement. And sometimes I've had return appointments where we've dug into, some interesting, intellectually curious problems, or philosophies and best practices. So there's, no guarantee which way the outcome is going to go, but you can certainly, be grateful that they take the time. You can thank them for that, and maybe bring a little treat to brighten their day, or something of value, as a token of your thanks. Because those are the kinds of conversations where most of the action happens today in careers. It's the passive job seeker. Even if you're perfectly happy in your current position, you might discover an even more incredible opportunity that just grabs you and you feel called to do it. If you know your job's a dead end or it's not going anywhere, then informational interviewing should be a very conscious effort on your part, um, each day, each week. At least do one or two of those. And then I think the other thing is LinkedIn and posting and contributing to discussions. That is your thought leadership presence. That also makes a difference, especially if colleagues have impressed you or shared something with you that's very meaningful. You can thank them for that, and you can engage in those conversations. So there's a lot you can do online. And the third thing is, think of a skill that you've always wanted to learn about, or something you've always wanted to be able to do, and take the first step. Get training, go to a seminar, a conference, or get an audiobook, and just keep your education process alive on whatever areas are fascinating you. Those are three pragmatic things you can do today, immediately, to own your career. And then we can have other conversations, if you like, about, the dicier conversations, like, I have a boss who's not willing to engage with me on my career. How do I crack that nut? There's things like that. How do I get my life coach involved, or my significant other? A lot of my time as a career coach is spent helping to finesse and to get those conversations to be mutually productive. But it's a wonderful green field of opportunity out there in the job market. A lot of scary things and uncertainty happening in the world, but there's always going to be a need for people who are willing to do jobs that are needed that benefit people, and you have the skills that you can bring to have that maximum impact. Enjoy the journey. Hope you've enjoyed episode 11.